This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
The College Football Playoff. Clemson, Oklahoma. Alabama, Michigan State.
If you're not ready for the playoff, you might not have a pulse.
Coverage begins New Year's Eve at 3 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.
The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. The First Take Podcast starts now.
Here's what's coming up on the First Take Podcast. Odell Beckham catches heat for his on-the-field antics, but how should the NFL respond? And just how good are the perfect Carolina Panthers? Plus, is Peyton Manning officially the Broncos' backup quarterback? That and so much more coming up on the pod.
Ball down the right side. He's got Odell Beckham Jr., who dropped it at the 10-yard line.
Now we have a fight. Josh Norman throws Beckham down.
What is he doing? Odell Beckham came up. Josh Norman had his back to him, and he came out of nowhere and tried to hit Josh Norman in the back of the head.
And here's the throw. Quickly to Tidkin. Makes the catch off the Olsen block. He will score a touchdown.
Wow. People are headed for the doors right now. There's Christmas shopping to do. There's 30 Rockefeller.
You know it's set. Snap is good, and it's blocked. Ball is recovered by the Giants.
14-point lead. Circus fourth quarter. Fumble. Ball is loose. Giants pick it up. Ball on it at the 13-yard line.
Wow. Self-inflicted error. Throws one left into the end zone, and it is caught with a touchdown by Odell Beckham Jr. And the Giants have come all the way back.
Cam Newton a chance to grow the legend. Being pressured. Sprints right. He'll run to the 30, to the 25, slides down. Excellent choice by Newton. 43 yards for the win. Now, the kick is up, and it's good.
The Carolina Panthers have gone to 14-0 in the most dramatic fashion you can imagine.
Oh, hello, good people. Good morning. Thank you for starting your week with us here on First Take. And I have a feeling that today is going to be a fun show by the likes of Twitter this weekend. Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, Molly Karam here.
I mean, this could get like ODB versus Josh, right?
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it could.
Really?
You guys are worse than those two.
Really? It might. A little later in this show.
I had a wonderful.
Oh, you had a wonderful weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
No, because your record.
I would like the record to show. I called every single game. I told
you can tell the world that.
I told you about your Cowboys. Right?
Wait.
Green Bay.
I don't think you got that one right.
We knew Green Bay was going to win. I told you the Redskins would
Green
be the
Bay,
only
we
team
didn't pick Green
in the
Bay.
NFC East would win. I tried to tell you this. I told you the Steelers would beat the Broncos. I tried to tell you.
like 3
but
games.
You know what? I only care about one.
Okay, well, that's all I care about.
We'll get to that a little bit later.
Well, well, wait a second. Congratulations on picking against the team you allegedly grew up liking.
Well, you know,
the New York Giants. And congratulations to Molly for picking the Giants, too. Just for the record.
That's a difference.
Just for the record.
But you're not going to.
They made a comeback.
Oh, they made a comeback.
I specifically.
Whatever. They're not the Steelers. They couldn't get it done.
I specifically requested that we wait to bring up the game I want to bring up because I want him to wait.
I know.
I thought we were going to let it go. We're not.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
We know it's your show. It's okay.
Yeah.
You tell us what to do. We just do what you say.
Patriarch
Everybody
to
know
my
that.
left.
About that. That's right.
Are you guys ready to work?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. It was a thriller yesterday. He looked
By the
clean
way, shake
at
my hand.
MetLife. But the main event was Josh Norman versus Odell Beckham, what Skip just alluded to, and it got ugly. ODB had 3 unnecessary penalties, the first player with 3 personal fouls in a game in over 4 years. Now, according to our Adam Schefter, a 1-game suspension is likely. Check out this tweet. It didn't stop after the game from Josh Norman for Odell Beckham. You guys see this? Reaching for the L, one-handed. Weak, Norman. You're better than that. Stephen A., should Beckham be punished, and if so, how?
Good morning again, Molly.
Good morning.
Skip Bayless. Not only should Odell Beckham Jr. be punished, he should be suspended for at least 1 game. Our very own Adam Schefter is reporting that is likely. I spoke to some folks connected with the league office. They've told me that as well. The likelihood is he will be suspended a game. I will tell you that the only reason that I don't believe he should be suspended for the last 2 games is based off of a conversation I had about an hour ago with primetime Deion Sanders before he got on the plane from L.A. back to his home in Dallas. That might have modified my position just a touch. But there is no question that Odell Beckham Jr. should be suspended for a game. When you launch your helmet into Josh Norman in that fashion, you have crossed the line. And when you take into account the fact that the league obviously is fixated on the whole concussion issue, on the helmet-to-helmet hits and things of that nature, and that stuff has permeated the NFL for the last several years. They are fixated on this issue. They are sticklers for this issue. You knew it coming into this game. You knew it coming into the NFL, that you would take the opportunity to do that to another player, particularly at the cornerback position against a wide receiver. You got to remember, you're not a defensive lineman, you're not a linebacker, you're a cornerback, and he's a wide receiver. To do something like that, you clearly had the most vicious intent for that kind of action. That alone warrants the 1-game suspension. Now, I take it a step further. I think Odell Beckham Jr. is a superstar. I think this brother's one of the top 2. I ain't going to call him number 1 anymore. Not after what I saw Antonio Brown do yesterday, reminding me that I should slap myself even thinking that somebody is better than him right now at the wide receiver spot, but we'll get into that later. When I think about Odell Beckham Jr., this dude is a superstar of the highest order as far as I'm concerned, and he has conducted himself like nothing more than a petulant child. I understand that there are things going out on the field, but let's just think about some of the things that we're pointing to, Skip. The shoes that you're wearing, on the field before the game, that is a violation. You know it, you did it anyway. The league calls you. You don't return their phone calls, but you definitely going to return their phone calls when it's an opportunity for you to get paid. You'll return people's phone calls again. Odell Beckham Jr. does not realize that the word is out about him in terms of not just who he is as a player, but who he could potentially be as a person. I don't know any of these things about him for sure. I know that we're hearing a lot of these things. And then you see him go out on that field. You got to remember, there was a play that was taking place, and in the midst of the play, while Josh Norman was going to help somebody else, one of his teammates, get a tackle, that's when Odell Beckham Jr., who had got slapped upside the head by Josh Norman, came in lunging with his helmet. You know what? For all we know, Josh Norman is concussed this morning because of a hit like that. It could be. It is possible. There is no excuse for it. And I didn't even get into the selfish element of it all, because he was so caught up from opening tap about him. If Odell Beckham Jr. had came to play in the first half the way that he came to play in the second half, the Giants might have won this game. But it was so much about him and so little about his team that he essentially cost them in so many different ways. Can we definitively say he cost them the game? No. But we can sit up there and say his actions certainly did not help them. I thought he should have been taken out of the game by Tom Coughlin, at least for a few plays. I thought somebody should have talked to him. I thought he should have been checked, okay? Ultimately, when he did that hit, I thought he should have been ejected, because had that been a defensive player, you damn well know he would have been ejected from the game. And the fact that we're sitting here today with all of these nuggets of evidence speaks to some real serious questions about who Odell Beckham Jr. is, what he wants to be. And as far as I'm concerned, when you take all of those things into consideration, there is no doubt in my mind that it warrants a 1-game suspension. He's lucky that it's not expected to be more than that.
Okay. Are we also going to suspend the referee crew for 1 game for its inactions in allowing and enabling all this to go on and on and on and happen?
Well, that's fair, but you and I both know we always complain about the officials.
Okay.
So I don't disagree there.
In all my years of watching football, I've never seen anything escalate to this degree. Play after play after play after play. They were having a fist fight through every snap of that first quarter of that game. Every snap. It's fist fighting. I've seen the great Dion. You're going to talk about him in a minute, but he's got. I remember once he got into it with the receiver like this, but this was every play. It was, and I think it was on a Sunday. I was just going to say it's a Monday night, but my point is that they are swinging on each other on every play, and I know a couple of flags flew early, but you could have put a stop to it. Terry McCauley is the head referee, and his group could have put an early stop to this. I did not blame Tom Coughlin for putting an early stop by yanking him off the field and reprimanding him, because let's face it, Tom Coughlin was coaching for his job yesterday.
Yes.
He was on his way to losing his 5th game of the last 7, and they are on their way to missing the playoffs for the 4th straight year. And I think Tom Coughlin was just desperate enough that he just looked the other way, going against everything he believes in and stands for years and years and years. He just said, I got no choice but to hope they don't throw this kid out, because if I have any hope of coming back from 35-7, it's going to be because of this kid. And it was because of this kid who caught the touchdown pass that tied the game at 35. So I'm not going to condemn Tom Coughlin in desperate circumstances for this. But let me tell you this. I'm going to call the league out as hypocritical here. And I'll tell you why. To me, they are now reacting to the reaction of what happened last night and into this morning. I think they're just sitting back, gauging the talk show type reaction, and they're gauging the outcry and saying, uh-oh, I guess we better do what didn't get done yesterday, which is suspend. He should have been ejected yesterday. Clearly, we would all agree, especially after the flying helmet to helmet. You just eject him. Josh Norman obviously was not guiltless here. He participated also. He helped escalate it.
Yep.
And you want to talk about a guy who can get inside people's heads? He gets inside everybody's head. He plays against Des Bryant included. We saw that on Thanksgiving. Here's my point. To me, the league has slowly but surely treated Odell Beckham Jr. like an untouchable. To me, you always talk about how they want to promote these quarterbacks, these golden boy quarterbacks. To me, he became, Odell Beckham, as much a promotional priority as any Peyton Manning or Tom Brady you want to talk about. Cover of Madden, greatest catch ever, video game come to life. I think he became maybe the biggest drawing card beyond Tom Brady, the cheater and liar, quote unquote, who's taken a hit to his reputation. Peyton Manning's been hurt on and off all year, faded. All of a sudden, it felt to me like the league belonged to Odell Beckham Jr. And I told you off the Monday night game, I thought he got away with 2 replay reviews where they looked the other way and gave him the benefit of the doubt because he's Odell Beckham Jr. And all of a sudden yesterday, all those refs, they're looking the other way, like, we can't flag him because he's the guy now. The league is hinging on his popularity. We can't. They let him get away with near murder yesterday, and they let Josh get away with a lot of junk yesterday too.
Well, Josh Norman can't be excused in this.
No, he cannot.
In this respect, first of all, they were going tit for tat with one another. Yeah. I want to be clear. I believe Odell Beckham Jr. should be suspended for 1 game because of that launch helmet to helmet into Josh Norman's head. That's why I believe he should be ejected. Any other play that went on, it's just involved penalties, unsportsmanlike, or whatever you want to call it, between him and Josh Norman. You could go back.
But how long do you let it go? How far do you let it go?
Well, again, the point that I'm trying to make is that you can penalize them. You can sit there and take yards away and leave it to their team to bring them under control. But I didn't think anything that they did with one another in the throes of a contested football game was beyond the pale.
Really? Throwing punches at each other?
Well, like I said, you got your helmet on. Okay, it's not like you're ripping the helmet off and hitting the person with the helmet or something like that. You got a helmet on. You're getting into fights. It's a very physical, violent game. And to me, a 15-yard penalty or whatever the case may be, a bunch of them would have sufficed. The only thing that I saw that warranted an ejection was the helmet-to-helmet hit by Odell Beckham Jr. Now, when I spoke to Prime, because watching him last night on the NFL Network doing his thing, like I watch him every Sunday night.
Yep, I do too.
That's my man, okay? He made the point when he was talking to me this morning. He said, Stephen A., linemen go, they launch their helmets into you off the bat from the line of scrimmage. Linebackers coming in, they do it. The only reason why this is an issue, because he disagrees with me, of course, the only reason why this is different is because we're talking about a wide receiver and a cornerback. So he brings that into the equation. What I do to counter that is, again, highlighting the fact that we know the league that we're in this day and age. We've been educated about concussions and its profound impact.
We get that.
Odell Beckham Jr. knows that. Okay. And so he walked in there with that level of intent. Now, we also hear before the game, Josh Norman was saying some things to him that's not conducive to being repeated on these airwaves. Okay. We saw quotes after the game where him and Cortland Finnegan alluded to those things as well.
They did. They question, let's just say they questioned his manhood.
They questioned his manhood, and we'll leave it at that.
All right.
Okay? And a lot of guys are doing that.
But it's just great trash talk. If it works, it works.
To control your emotions, regardless.
No. I'm not excusing it. I'm not excusing it at all. I'm simply saying that Odell Beckham Jr. walked in with that level of heat because they seem to be excessive in questioning
but that's Odell's fault. That's Odell's fault.
I totally agree.
All is fair in love and football. I'm sorry, you're going to hear it.
I totally agree.
Okay.
But he's obviously a bit more sensitive to it than most football players would be. Why, I don't know. But he seems to be, and they seem to notice, and as a result, they are coming at him like, you know what I'm saying. So now that we got that out the way, understand that he brought all of that on the field, which means that his reaction to it wasn't just about football. It was about something extra, and he put that on display. And you can't do that. You just can't do that. So he was excessive.
All that pregame trash talk that got under his skin and into his head led to the opening pass that hits him right in the hand.
And dropped.
And could have changed the whole game.
That's right, and he dropped.
Seriously, if he catches that, stadium explodes.
That's right.
I don't know what's going to happen in that game.
That's right.
Do they have an edge that they could hold on to? Maybe.
Josh Norman is not innocent in any of this, but he didn't do anything that I deem ejectable. I don't believe that he did anything that warrants an ejection. Odell Beckham Jr. should have been ejected.
Okay, how do you
from that one
how do you
hit?
defend the referee crew for not ejecting him off that?
It's horrendous. I mean,
horrendous.
Seriously. They should lose a check for the game.
Okay, that's what I just said. So you got to suspend the crew, right? Or the head referee.
And I guess to get to your point, most people don't really care about that. We know that they deserve to be fined, if not, docked a game's pay. But no, most people don't care about that. But that's a given. I'm saying when it comes to the suspension, there's only one person that needs to be suspended, and that's Odell Beckham Jr. Because no matter what Josh Norman did, he didn't do that. He didn't launch his helmet into Odell Beckham Jr.'s head, by the way, in the middle of a pile, because Josh Norman could have gotten hit by somebody else at that time. If you watch that hit in slow motion and you see the way his head snaps, I mean, look at what the NFL is going through just to prevent something like that. A movie is being made because of stuff like that that's happening.
I got that. I'm with you. He needs to be suspended for at least a game.
At least a game.
But the point is, big picture, his reputation as the best receiver in pro football took a big hit yesterday, I think, and I hope, because it deserved to take a big hit. Just his reputation in general.
I don't even think that Odell Beckham Jr. realizes how much he's hurt himself. He's hurt himself very badly because he came across yesterday as incredibly selfish. I mean, I don't ever want to hear another word about T.O. and other people like that again after what we saw from Odell Beckham, because that was all about him.
He was overly emotional.
All about him.
Down.
It's like you seemed out of control, like you were unable to contain yourself, to control yourself, not to mention the fact that, again, everything was at the price of your teammates. Eventually, you got it under control, but it was after you had already cost them so much. And it was shocking to see. Look, I'm on the phone with Skip, my sister Linda, the biggest Giants fan that I know, even bigger than you. She was like, you got to yank him. You got to yank him. And she bleeds Big Blue. Just bleeds it. But it was like he was just out of control.
Coughlin's job on the line, I think he was just like, hey, this is my only shot.
That's fair. You're absolutely right. That's fair about Coughlin. But it does say something, and the reason why Odell Beckham Jr.'s reputation is taking a hit and needs to take a hit is because he didn't just come across as somebody that was a bit too sensitive and definitely out of control. The word selfish has to get added to the equation because he didn't seem to care about how anything was affecting his team. It was all about him. And we didn't get that impression to this degree until yesterday. I think nobody's going to question his skills because the brother is big time. But his level of selfishness, it was alarming to see. It was out of control.
Last point. he also has gotten a pass to me because he's so good with the media, because it's almost Manziel-like where you're one guy off the field in front of the cameras. You know, Johnny can put on a big, good face, be very convincing. Yes, sir. No, sir. And Odell can be very forthright with what he says and very mature and eloquent. We've had him on the show. And then he gets on the field and you say, who is that guy?
Yeah.
Well, he just comes undone because we even have Ryan Clark has mentioned to me that the biggest trash talker he encountered last year in his last year playing was Odell Beckham Jr. He just talks constantly. Well, he just ran up against a guy, Josh Norman, who can out-talk the talker. And got under his skin in the warm-ups.
Well, you listen to what Josh Norman said about him. Those are some very, very powerful statements. Took the mask, has come off. You know, he's dancing like Michael Jackson.
Yep.
Are you a football player or not? Or what I mean, it was all of that stuff.
They went for the throw.
They went for that throw, and they meant every word of it.
That's not the first time, and players can normally control
it. It was the
themselves.
kind of quote. Look, I know the fellas. It was the kind of quotes where the only reason they weren't waiting for him after the game is because of the NFL Shield. Had it not been for that, you would have had some cats waiting for Odell Beckham Jr. after that game, because some of that stuff just seemed that excessive. And I'm telling you, it's just bad right now, and his reputation is going to take a hit for this, because you cannot be that selfish, and he is.
And the last thing I want to say, you don't become a superstar by your antics, and I think it distracts from his play. He doesn't need all the extra stuff, and I think it actually takes away from him and hurts him.
Well, to go to Skip's point, let's remember that he's in the New York market, and they ain't got much to cheer. They don't have.
No, I know, it's a losing team.
So you know,
still.
you don't have much to cheer about. Just the combination of personality and the electrifying skills that he has, which we haven't seen in New York at the wide receiver spot in a long, long time.
Just loves the attention. And Prime did say also last night that he does want to squash it all. That Beckham is behind it and wants to speak to Norman and squash it. So we'll see how that plays out.
Well, Beckham spoke to our very own Chris Carter. He's going to speak. He spoke to Prime Time as well. They haven't been able to get in touch with Josh Norman because they believe that he may very well be concussed this morning. They're not sure, but that's what Prime Time told me earlier this morning.
All right, let's get into the actual game now. Despite the Giants' comeback, they couldn't get it done in a 38-35 loss. Cam and the Panthers stay perfect. And according to Elias, he became the first player in NFL history with 5 TDs and 100 yards rushing in the same game. Unreal. Stephen A., did Cam now lock up MVP?
Well, listen, I don't want to say he locks up MVP because of this reason. And we alluded to it yesterday morning on SportsCenter, me with Keyshawn, CC, and TJ. Cam can't lose a game. Tom Brady is playing too sensational in his own right. And with all that he's overcome with Deflategate and beyond, to have the kind of year that they're having, in order for Cam Newton to win the league MVP, the belief is either he sits down and doesn't play another game since they've secured the #1 seed in the NFC, or if he does play, he can't lose a game. If Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers lose one of these final 2 games, Cam Newton is going to lose the MVP to Tom Brady.
They're at Atlanta and then Tampa.
At Atlanta and at Tampa.
Yeah.
You know, he's got to win both if he plays, or if he doesn't play, he can rest on his laurels here and hope that's enough. I believe that he's the league MVP. I believe he was nothing short of sensational. I believe that when you see Cam Newton running the football, over 300 yards passing, 5 TDs, rushing for over 100 yards, that's never been done. That's never been done. And once again, he put his excellence, his spectacular play on display. Now, obviously, he was on the field and he was a part of losing a 28-point lead, being up 35-7, and then letting the Giants come back. But all it did was set the stage for his semantics, for his heroics. And when you look at the Giants and Odell Beckham Jr. catching that last touchdown pass, the camera goes to the sideline and you see Cam Newton just nodding his head like, all right, let's go. Let's go. It's like, okay, it's time. Yeah. And so when you're thinking about a league MVP, you're not just looking at numbers, 8 rushes for 100 yards or 25 or 45 for 340 yards with 5 touchdowns and a quarterback rating of 116. You're thinking about the moment. The moments are what define. That's what makes Brady one of the all-time greats. It's why we talk about Brady in the same ilk of Joe Montana and others. It's not because he just has 4 Super Bowls. It's because in each moment when it was time for him to show up and delivered, he did his part. When the Giants beat the Patriots, it was after Brady connected with Randy Moss for the touchdown pass. You know, he shows up. Well, Cam Newton, throughout this season, against Seattle, New Orleans, the Giants, big moments arrive, and this brother closes. And that, to me, is the ultimate ingredient to success. That, combined with perfection, to me, gives him the league MVP. But if he went out over the last 2 games and lost to Atlanta, lost to Tampa Bay, he loses. If he doesn't, and he plays the way he's been playing, he wins it.
This time, I agree with you. That was extremely fair, what you just said, how you presented it, how you put it in perspective. I am with you. I am going to go so far as to say Cam has caught Tom Brady, that it's a dead heat, but it's just beginning. Now we close to the wire, to the finish line, and it is going to be a great finish, and I am not ruling out Carson Palmer or Russell Wilson, because everybody's got some big games left, and they are all going to have the opportunities against worthy opponents in games that really, really impact the playoffs. They'll all have a chance to separate and win MVP. I'm not ruling out Tom Brady because, listen, yesterday, I know it was just Tennessee, but he goes 7 for 7 on his opening drive for a quick touchdown. Gronkowski had a bad day. He failed to hang on to 2 or even, you might even say 3 passes I thought he should have caught. Amendola is hurt again. I don't know his fate, but they're going to have a really hard time if he can't play at all at Jets, and that's coming up next Sunday at 1 o'clock. Yesterday, Tom Brady's primary running back was Joey Iacetta.
Yep.
Joey Iacetta? Are you kidding me? I'd never heard of him. I have some hardcore Patriot friends, Patriot-loving friends. They'd never heard of Joey Iacetta, who was elevated on the practice squad above Monte Ball into basically not really the starting lineup, but he became the primary ball carrier.
Right.
That's what Tom Brady is putting up with right now. No Amendola and Iacetta. Really? And he still had, by my standards, a very good game. By his standards, maybe slightly below average, but still good enough. And remember, I don't want to be prisoner of the moment here because Tom Brady's first 8 or 9 games were just sensational. Just as high a level as any quarterbacking I've ever watched in all my career. Cam Newton got off to a very slow start this year. I got 6 games here, whereas QBR was below average with a 42, a 49, a 20, a 50, a 28, and a 34.
Well, Brady went through a 4-game stretch later on where that was the case with him, too.
Okay, but in both the losses for the Patriots, Brady nearly pulled off miraculous comebacks. Remember this? At Denver and against Philly at home? He almost pulled it off. And you said, how did he do that with not many weapons at his disposal? Because he lost, obviously, Gronkowski at Denver and still almost pulled it off. Okay? Cam yesterday, let's just be fair, and I'm picking nits here, but he did throw what could or should have been the pick six. And I thought, actually, for parts of the day, he was a little wild high, was Cam. Like, he was just a little off. He wasn't as accurate as I've seen him in the previous 3 games.
Well, he got hit early, too.
He got hit, and he got stung in his chest, in his ribs. And then his fumble, and it was attributed to him. I thought it was his fault because he tried to pull it back out from Cameron Artis-Payne. And that was 6:50 to go and set up a late touchdown by the Giants that got them back in the game. I'm picking nits here, but I'm just saying, I'm glad. I thought you would just jump to the conclusion, it's over, it's a lock, Cam's won it. I'm sitting back saying this could be as great an MVP close as we've ever seen.
It's even more heated now.
We didn't bring this up as a subject and a topic that we were going to broach today. And maybe we'll broach it at a later date. But based on what you just said, it's only fair to ask this question. Based on what you're saying, doesn't a call need to be made as to whether or not Cam Newton plays? Like, if you're Ron Rivera, I mean, you're undefeated. Do you go for it, run the table, or do you sit up there and watch the hits that took place yesterday, watch the violence in the game against the Giants, and say to yourself, we're trying to win a Super Bowl championship here. Do we go for it? It's a tough
I think
call.
He's going to play at Atlanta. I don't know about the last game.
I guess what I'm asking you is that, what do you do? What do you do?
Okay, I'll bet Cam will push to play at Atlanta back in his hometown against the rivals.
And if you're coaching Cam, what do you do?
He was yesterday, and then they needed him.
Well, I mean, they need to hold off Arizona, right? I mean, they have a 2-game lead.
They have a 2-game lead.
Yeah.
They have a 2-game lead.
I don't know how the tiebreakers
I think they would still end up the number 1 seed. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying that's the question. Now, see, if you haven't secured the number 1 seed, then it's an easy call.
Okay.
But if you have, what do you do? Because he's got an MVP on the line, but it ain't about individual awards.
Okay.
Because the way they've been playing right now, it's Super Bowl or bust.
Then he could lose it, because if Brady puts on a show at Jets, or if Carson Palmer puts on 2 shows against Green Bay and Seattle at home, big games, right?
Yeah.
Russell Wilson has St. Louis and at Arizona.
And Carolina loses.
Okay. Yeah.
And because see, to me, there's nothing to discuss if Carolina finishes 16-0. But if they lose a game or 2, that changes everything.
Yeah, okay.
Changes everything.
But fair to say, this MVP race got even more heated, and now it's no longer a 2-horse race. We have other names in there that we're going to have to consider. So tomorrow on First Take, we'll have Stephen A. sit-down interview with Will Smith. We'll get his thoughts on his role in the new controversial film Concussion and how head injuries are impacting the future of the NFL tomorrow, right here on First Take.
40-yard field goal attempt from the left hash out of the hold of Quigley to give the Jets the lead. The placement is good. The kick is on the way. The kick is good. Bullock knocks it through. And the Jets have the lead with 36 seconds to go. Back to throw is Moore. He's going to unload a jump ball, looking for Des Bryant. And it's knocked away and intercepted. Picked up by Marcus Williams. And that will ice it for the Jets with 11 seconds to go.
It's actually kind of sad right now because Skip can finally let it go. The Jets eliminated the Cowboys from the playoffs with the team's 1960 win on Saturday night. Skip, what happened?
Yeah, I'm about to let it go on another referee crew.
To your boys.
What happened? The Saturday night robbery is what happened to my boys. Yeah. Let's talk about it, can we? Let's go right to the end of the game.
I want you to know, relax.
Yeah, I can't relax. I haven't gotten over this and may never.
I promise you, you can have the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, that's not true.
Yours. Explain.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to carefully explain, since you probably didn't even see this happen.
I saw it.
Yeah, okay.
I was at the Knicks game.
Can we go to the end of the game and quit delaying this process?
Take your time.
3rd and 1 Jets at their 29-yard line. A minute and a half left in the game. Score tied at 16. Ryan Fitzpatrick, who, by the way, played very well.
He did.
He rushed to the line of scrimmage for a quick snap quarterback sneak, trying to fool my Dallas Cowboys. But they weren't that fooled. He did get the 1.5 yards that he needed, but he got hit. And as he went down, he clearly lost the football before his knee touched the ground. The ball was loose. Greg Hardy scooped it up. My Cowboys are celebrating because they think they're about to win the game. But what had happened? The refs got fooled because Ryan Fitzpatrick rushed to the line of scrimmage for the first time all game so quickly, they were not ready for the quick snap. They completely missed the fact that the ball was fumbled before the knee touched. So all of a sudden, NFL Network goes to commercial for what seemed like about a 7-minute commercial, while somebody up there, somebody in New York, or maybe this head referee, Craig Rolstad, is looking at a replay that clearly is screaming at them, you have to overturn the call on the field. But they don't. And you know why they don't? Because they knew that they didn't want to show up yet another referee crew on a solo stage night game, such as a Saturday night game that everybody was watching, because we all know everybody watches the Dallas Cowboys, and everybody's going to now miss the Dallas Cowboys, including everybody who watches this show, because I'm going to have to let it go. So, what would have happened? They were afraid to overturn because they knew if you overturn, you immediately give the Cowboys the chance to just let the clock run down to 5 seconds and let Dan Bailey automatically kick yet another field goal. That would have made the score Cowboys 19, Jets 16. I predicted 20-17 Dallas Cowboys, so I wouldn't have just been right. I would have been almost on the mark on the score, on the money. It would have preempted anything you predicted yesterday. It would have trumped it. It would have made it look like child's play if I had called that, and I hung right in there, and they stole it from me. It was the Saturday night robbery. And you know what would have happened? Because Jason Garrett finally had the guts to actually do something. He did something during a game. He said, I can't watch any more of Matt Castle. I'm going to yank his behind out of the game after he threw trying to throw it away interception to Darrelle Revis, a play on which my Cowboys got 2 penalties, including intentional grounding and an interception. And Jason Garrett, God bless him, he finally said, I've seen enough. I'm going to throw a kid in the game named Kellen Moore, who has not taken a single snap in the National Football League. And guess what? Kellen Moore was better than Brandon Weeden and Matt Castle combined. He actually has a clue as to how to run an offense and throw the football to, dare I say, Des Bryant. So with Kellen Moore, if the referees had correctly awarded the game to my Dallas Cowboys, trust me, they would have gone up to Buffalo this next Sunday. They would have won. Then they would have gone home and beaten the Redskins, and they would win the NFC East because they would have the tiebreaker, which is division record, because they would finish 4-2 in the NFC East. That's what got robbed from me. That's why it was the Saturday night robbery. And I will take it to my grave that the league office or the head referee or somebody pulled one off on my Dallas Cowboys.
Before I go into my response, can we get my John Legend music going, please? Yeah. I just need to hear that. Can we have it? Can we have it? It's coming in a second.
On every show.
Turn it up.
Just not on every show.
Oh, shut up, John. I've had enough. I've heard enough. That's enough. Just stop it.
I mean, this is beautiful. Yeah. This is beautiful.
Beautiful.
Let me say this. Let me say this, y'all. You can just turn the volume down a little bit, but keep playing it while I'm talking. Because you tried to tell you, Skip, I told you all year long, I never, ever went into detail. All I said was, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And let's count the ways. Game number 2 against the Eagles, Tony Romo goes down. Game number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Game number 1, Des goes down.
Hold on, let me finish.
Yeah, that helps.
Really?
You know what? Even though I don't like you interrupting me at times like this, that is fair.
That's important.
Des goes down number 1. Romo goes down number 2. Game 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh my God. I mean, they lose every game. You got a coach that's a puppet that can't do a damn thing right. You lose every single game. You lose a lead to New Orleans because of something on defense. You lose a lead to the Atlanta Falcons because you can't hold the lead. I tried to tell you. And then all of a sudden they get rid of Brandon Weeden, right? And why did they get rid of Brandon Weeden? Because he doesn't belong there. But just a few weeks earlier, Jerry Jones is on 105.3 in Dallas, Texas, talking about how this dude can really fling a football. So you got Jerry Jones. You
got to point this out. Brandon Weeden actually won a game for the Houston Texans.
I was getting it.
Okay.
Don't disrupt the flow. It was coming. It was coming now because Jerry Jones sat up there and said the brother can't quarterback. But it was after swearing to us that he could quarterback. But then he told us he couldn't quarterback and how he made a mistake not having the right backup. And then the dude goes to Houston and helps them get the division lead in the AFC South. Okay, so we got a coach that can't coach. We got an owner who wants to be the GM and president, and he ain't qualified to do either. You got injuries galore. You've got no backup, no depth. Your player personnel department, we don't even know if they exist because they all answer to Jerry Jones. And oh, by the way, you get your headlines. And then even when you get the headlines, okay, it's a Saturday night robbery. That's what you want to label it as. So
no, that's what happened.
So hold on. Let's analyze that. Let's analyze that for a second. Nobody is disputing what you're talking about here. I told you I wouldn't watch the game, and I did it. I was at the Knicks game. I was chilling in the suite at the Knicks game, chilling out. They had the Dallas Cowboys game on there. So I glanced over it a little bit while I was eating my hot dogs and stuff like that. But the bottom line is,
you shouldn't be eating those hot dogs.
I'm in shape, and I've been running. I ran it off. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is this, Skip Bayless. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is that guess what? the referees, so that's another way they lost games.
Yep.
I mean, what ways have the Dallas Cowboys not won football games this year? I mean, they've invented new ways of losing, Skip, which I told you would happen. I tried to warn you, but you wouldn't listen. And that's why we're here where we are today. Yes, the Dallas Cowboys have headlines. You should be happy Odell Beckham Jr. and those got there, because he'd have led the show with that today. I'd have looked forward to that, because that would have been the story, because now they found a different way to lose. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is this. We rewind the clock. And we come back to Stephen A., your boy, sitting across from you, saying to you, somehow, some way, at some time, they will find a different way to lose, because they always do. They're the Dallas Cowboys, circa the new millennium. They are a joke. The franchise, its fan base, rather, is a disgrace. Unrealistic folks, led by yours truly, sitting up in there when they 4-9, talking about, well, we could do this, and if we just do this,
I'm still saying it.
Well, excuse me, no, not today, because today it is finally official. There is nothing that the Dallas Cowboys can do to make the playoffs.
Robbery.
So the bottom line is this: Skip Bayless, are you going to man up and admit the obvious? Hold on, these are facts. These are facts. I'm not telling you to let it go. It's a fact that the Dallas Cowboys are officially eliminated from the playoffs. Say it.
No, I'm
say it.
I'm going to appeal.
Say it.
I'm going to appeal.
I'm going to appeal.
I'm going to appeal. I'm going to appeal. I'm taking it to the league office. I want an apology. I want an apology from Roger Goodell.
No, what you need.
I do.
You know what Roger Goodell wants?
I'm not giving up.
You know what Roger Goodell wants? He wants an apology from Jerry Jones for fielding that team. He wants an apology from Jerry Jones for sitting up in there and not having a backup plan. He wants an apology from Jerry Jones for putting the entire franchise on the shoulders of Tony Romo. You need a coach. You need a GM. You need a president. You need quality backups. You need your running back in DeMarco Murray.
No, we don't. We got Darren McFadden. Had another 100-yard game against the mighty Jets. He ran for 100 yards. I told you he would.
At the end of the day, Skip Bayless, the chemistry and cohesiveness that you had, y'all shattered for a few $1 million. Congratulations. Since you won't say
DeMarco's lighting it up.
No. Come on now. You saw how Chip Kelly didn't even give him the ball on the first half. Come on now.
Fault.
That's right. That's Chip Kelly. I'm just saying that it ain't about him. It's about Chip Kelly. In the end, Skip Bayless, your Dallas Cowboys are dead, irrelevant. How does it feel to be
I feel
over?
For you, Skip.
I
know what it's like.
They're
as a
dead.
real fan.
They are dead.
Can I have my camera?
I feel for you.
Can I have my camera?
Go ahead. Give it to him. Give it to him. Dead.
I owe one person an apology this morning. To my dear Ernestine, thank you very much. For the first time in our lengthy relationship, what are we now? Almost 11 years? You actually sat with me for the entire Dallas Cowboy game on Saturday night. You sat right beside me. You held my hand. You suffered through the torment and the torture at the end of that game when I yelled some words that I don't often yell, and you just swallowed it, and you even told me when it was over you were praying for me, and I said you can't pray for football games, but you were still doing it for me, and thank you for that, and I love you for that, because that was way beyond the Call of Duty.
And now your number 2 is here with you. As we go to break, the Saturday night robbery. We put it to rest.
The Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. Iowa completed its first ever 12-win season and was 1 win away from the playoff. Stanford won the Pac-12 championship and was in the playoff conversation until the final week. It's the first ever meeting between the two. Number 5 Iowa, number 6 Stanford. The Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. Coverage begins New Year's Day at 5 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.
Meanwhile, ESPN Broncos reporter Jeff Legwold asked Manning on his way out of the locker room Sunday if he had any response to a report from Sunday morning on NFL Network that he's not interested in being Brock Osweiler's backup. Here's Manning's response to the report. It's bull bleep and it's insulting. When asked if that was on the record, Manning told Legwold, yes, I can't say it any plainer than that. Broncos general manager and executive vice president John Elway also responded to the report on Twitter. Peyton has never told Gary or myself that he doesn't want to be the backup. Any report or rumor that suggests otherwise is incorrect. Stephen A., what do you make of the situation between Peyton Manning and the Broncos right now?
Well, the first thing I would like to say before answering that question, me being a Steelers fan, I loved what I saw yesterday afternoon.
You should have.
If we don't put powder on ourselves for television, I swear to you, I'd slap myself in the face right now for even thinking that there's a better receiver in the game than Antonio Brown right now. This brother is on another level. He's just unstoppable. And you talk about Demaryius Thomas and Dez Bryant getting their money this last offseason.
I agree.
The Steelers, you need to pay this man. And I'm proud of Mike Tomlin because I love what they looked like in the first half. I said, this is my problem with this team. This is exactly my problem with this team. That daggone secondary, you can throw the football in them, blah, blah, blah. They came out in the second half, and boy, did they put it on the Denver Broncos. And to see how elite Denver's defense is. And Chris Harris, Jr., we got profound respect for him. And he got eaten alive by Antonio Brown. He got taken to school yesterday afternoon. Having said all of that, getting directly to Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. Skip Bayless, what we were alluding to with Odell Beckham Jr., that's the antithesis with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning is class personified. Peyton Manning is a member of the first family of football as far as I'm concerned. From Archie on down to Peyton, on down to Eli Manning, who's a really good guy. When you look at Peyton Manning coming out and speaking so defiantly, you have no choice but to stop in your tracks. And the words that he used, it was BS and all of that, that's fine. But the ultimate word that he used that really resonated with me was disrespect. Because what he's saying is that to say that he couldn't be a backup, that he has to start, otherwise he's not willing to help his team by playing a different role, it goes against everything we have known him to represent. And, we all hear from sources, something like that or whatever, but he basically really elevated the significance of the story for me, Skip, when he literally alluded to his own character being questioned. And I respect that. I respect the heck out of him for that. He has every right to do that because that was an indictment against his character. If you're going to sit there and say to him, you're going to be a backup. Well, you got his health. Now, if he can play and, a backup, why should he want to be a backup if he's completely healthy? But with him having a foot injury and all the injuries that he's had to sustain and to sit there and imply him knowing that he's not 100%, knowing that he could barely throw, that he couldn't play a backup role if asked to, that is disrespectful to him. So I do respect that. But I will tell you this also. Brock Osweiler has not been a total bust to me, but he hasn't been nearly as impressive as people try to make him out to be. He got in the second half, they got to him, and he couldn't do anything. He couldn't do much of anything. And so I look at it from that perspective, and I say, you know what? It's a dicey situation for Kubiak and Elway to be in. I think they're handling it as well as you possibly can because they're saying we're not going to speculate. We're going to wait and see, and then we'll make our call. I respect the manner in which they're handling it, and I respect the manner in which Peyton Manning came to his own defense.
Okay. But you made a point within your point. You said, gee, Peyton wouldn't love being somebody's backup. Anybody, not just Brock Osweiler, but if he's healthy.
He wouldn't accept it if he's healthy because there would be no reason to accept it if he were healthy. But if you know you're hurt, then of course
I don't think he's even capable of being a backup now. From all I read, he's got a really serious plantar fasciitis.
That's right, and that's what he's saying. So the point is he may not be able to go at all, but don't sit there and say that Peyton Manning wouldn't accept being a number two because of his personality, his ego. That's what he was addressing, which is why he was so defiant, because they were questioning his character.
Okay, I got it. Now back to Brock Osweiler. Do you realize for 3 straight second halves, he has scored 0 points for 3 straight second halves? And I got to tell you, I'm not sold yet like a big fan of Brock Osweiler's, and I'm with you. Been a lot of overhype, a lot of hysteria about Brock on, the Denver Broncos and all this. Okay.
Brock Osweiler.
Yeah, right. There you go. Thank you. Do you realize in that first half, which I watched yesterday, I'm thinking he is out Big Benning Big Ben. He looked like Roethlisberger to me. You know, what is he, 6'7"?
Yeah.
And he's shrugging off pass rushers and running with the ball. He throws 3 touchdown passes, runs for a touchdown in the first half, in which he's 14 of 18 for 214 yards against your suspect secondary.
Right.
And I'm saying, wait a second. You went 8 for 8 on third down in the first half against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh? That's pretty great. And then in the second half, he comes out and goes 7 for 26 for 82 yards with a QBR of 2 on a scale of 0 to 100. He has a 2 QBR, and they go 1 for 9 on third down. I don't even know who that was. It looks like he comes out and folds under the pressure. That's all. I don't know, but I'm having to judge this from a distance.
Right.
I realize the Pittsburgh Steelers turned up the heat, but I don't think they're capable of turning it up that much to where he just came completely apart, lost his poise. He did. Vernon Davis had another huge drop that hurt him. Demarius had a drop. Just in fairness, listen, Vernon Davis, I don't even know if he wants to play. I don't know what he is.
Remember what I kept saying? I haven't seen Vernon Davis play decent football since I saw him doing that interview on CNBC about his stocks.
I agree.
I haven't seen him play a decent football in almost 2 years.
I don't know if he even cares anymore, if his heart's in it or
what.
what.
Dropping passes.
Just huge drops. Game-changing.
Doesn't make any sense.
So here's my point. The kid's not ready for the second half pressure. I'm not saying he's choking. I'm just saying he's failing under the heat to live up to what Peyton had been doing for this football team for so long. And because of that, I'm just going to go on record as saying this team will go as far as Peyton takes this team. Not Brock Osweiler, as far as Peyton takes this team. And I'm going to point out, they have Cincinnati at home. No gimme, even with the young quarterback there who played okay yesterday.
Right.
A.J. McCarron played okay at San Francisco. And then they have San Diego in what could be its last game as San Diego's Chargers. And Phillip Rivers always torments them, haunts them. So are you sure they can win those 2 games with Brock Osweiler? Because I'm not sure.
Not only that, Kansas City is coming, and now they're under pressure because they got to beat Cincinnati, because it's possible that Kansas City can end up winning this division.
And then Denver, if that happens, Denver would miss the playoffs.
They could miss the playoffs because the Jets are running the table. The Jets would get in before Denver.
Wow.
So it's definitely something to consider, no doubt. But what I will say is this to you. What the Steelers did in the second half against the Denver Broncos yesterday was my most proudest moment watching that defense over the last several years. I know they've had a few really good games. Their defense against Cincinnati earlier this season when they lost 16-10, I give them a lot of credit. But I'm just saying, being down, amping up the pressure, getting at Brock Osweiler, applying constant pressure. And you know who I give the credit to for that? That offense. Because that offense is so electrifying.
Yeah, that's true.
With Martavis Brown, with Antonio Brown, with D'Angelo Williams, with Heath Miller, with Wheaton. They're so explosive, and the offensive line has been doing a better job of protecting Big Ben. They're so explosive that even when they're behind, it's one of those offenses, Skip, Molly, where you hear their footsteps.
You do.
It's like, it's not just that they scored. You know, you up 27-10. But they score, and you're like, oh, Lord, here they come. It's one of those things. You hear them coming, and you're like, oh, man, what are we going to do about this? This is a problem, right? And so what happens is it inspires the defense, and they just come. You could see it because, again, as somebody who knows Mike Tomlin a little bit, who's interviewed him on several occasions, etc., you know, that mentality which Jason Garrett does not have, you know, where you just infuse a level of energy in them. It's like they started coming at them like rabid dogs, man. And it was
they saw some blood in the water, didn't they?
But I'm just saying, this is after they were down 17. They came out and they were coming. And when you know your offense is that prolific, you can take chances. And this is what they were doing. To watch their defense that second half, it put a smile on my face for the first time all year long. Because I don't believe in that defense because of their secondary.
I would still put an asterisk at the bottom of that.
Because of Brock.
Yeah. Brock versus Brock Osweiler.
Your team could pull it off. But no, the Steelers are a force, and we're going to get into the AFC later in this division and who's in the lead there. And Skip, to your point, you think the Broncos only go as far as
Peyton
Manning,
takes them.
not Brock. All right.
I hope I pull back a mask. I hope I pull back the face of what it dude really is. I mean, I don't know how many balls he dropped. I don't know how much focus he lost in himself, but it goes to show what kind of player he is and what kind of game he has. And people need to start taking realize and notice of that.
we're competing. You know, you're a competitor, I'm a competitor. We're always going to go at it. Anybody who's played sports, you know, you're competitive. You're going to go as hard as you can. So
was it personal?
I don't know what that means. What personal?
Was something said beforehand?
Nothing was said.
I mean, the guy ran 15 yards down the field, dead on collision. I mean, it wasn't no. I mean, the play was all the way onto the left side. He came back and was hunting. And it was just like malicious in every way. And when they put it on the film, when they go back and review it, I hope the league office take a better look at it and see what they can do. Because players like that don't need to be in the game. I mean, it's ridiculous.
So there's that. The New York Post with the headline, Giant Jerk. Josh Norman and Odell Beckham went at it all day, obviously. Beckham was called for 3 unnecessary roughness penalties, including a helmet-to-helmet hit where most people thought he should have been ejected. Our Adam Schefter reporting that a 1-game suspension is likely, that according to sources. Tim Hasselbeck in the house. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. We need you to weigh in on this. Should he be punished, and if so, how? Beckham.
I think he should be punished. I think he should be fined.
Okay.
I don't think that he should be suspended. If you do suspend him, then I think there's a bunch of other guys that should get suspended also. And people say, oh, you know, he was targeting him. Well, anybody who says that he was targeting Josh Norman, I would say, I agree. And I would say, and let me turn your attention to the Steelers playing the Denver Broncos and introduce you to Cody Wallace and watch him target David Bruton. Because you know what happened to David Bruton? He got knocked out yesterday. Okay? He got knocked out.
Yep.
So why isn't everyone going crazy about Cody Wallace, who, by the way, has been fined before for something nasty that he did to Randy Starks in the game against the Miami Dolphins? I think what's happened is there's a lot of eyeballs, and Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are calling the game, and they're a little bit outraged by it, and so now all of a sudden everyone joins in. The truth is, there are hits like that every single weekend. And so, I think to suspend him for it, there's just zero consistency if you're not going to do the same thing for all of the other targeting hits that happen.
Okay, but I don't know the background of the Cody Wallace one, but I don't know if it was retaliation or was it just out of control play?
Clean in the pile?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Odell did. Clean the pile.
But I mean, clearly he was trying to get even for a lot of fisticuffs that had taken place up to that point.
Yeah, I mean, right. But if you're suspending him, you're not suspending. If you're suspending Odell Beckham, you're not suspending him because he, grabbed Josh Norman's ankle and he had some shoving matches throughout the day. You're not suspending him for that. You're suspending him because you thought that he went headhunting. That's why you're suspending him. You guys just watched it. What was Cody Wallace doing?
It looks the same.
Was he headhunting? Because David Bruton got knocked out. He got hit in the head, and he got knocked out.
Well,
go ahead.
Here's my problem with what you're saying. Then suspend Cody Wallace.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean...
I'm saying if you suspend him, just be consistent across the board.
Well, we don't disagree there. You're absolutely right. People may not have been paying attention to Cody Wallace.
But here's
we should.
Just quickly.
Sure.
That was a big game, too.
Yeah, well,
that's the number 1 CBS team doing that game.
No question.
Probably more eyeballs on it, right?
Right. But, again, we also talk about popularity. We talk about the stars and how the stars shine, the lights shine brightest on those stars. So I totally agree with you about the consistency. Please don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is when you look at Odell Beckham Jr., how he had personalized matters, how he went headhunting on that particular play, because I don't think anything else that happened in the game between those two warranted the suspension. Penalties, potentially a fine, but nothing warranted a suspension other than Odell Beckham Jr. sitting out. To me, if you want to say that others should be suspended as well for doing the same thing, I'm good. I don't believe that you can let Odell Beckham Jr. get a pass on what we saw yesterday, because I thought that hit, as visual as it was, epitomizes everything that the league claims it is trying to eradicate from the game of football. They've been fixated on that issue and the manner in which he was playing most of the afternoon.
But you can't include that stuff in suspending him. If you're going to say, we're trying to get this out of the game,
right?
I would agree with you. They're trying to get that out of the game. That's one of the reasons. Like that rule was like you probably remember. It's like the John Runyon rule.
Yep.
Runyon would come flying down the field. If you were standing around the pile, like there's a shot that your head was going to get taken off.
But the flip side to that, Tim, is that I've heard you on many occasions bring up intent as well. And what I'm saying to you,
what was Wallace doing?
Oh, yeah, I got you. Again, I'm not refuting any of that. I'm simply saying that when we look at Odell Beckham Jr., we're not just looking at the hit itself. You have to take all of those other actions into consideration because it speaks to potential intent, which I've heard you guys allude to because I defer to a lot of y'all with what you're saying. So I'm saying if you could look at Odell Beckham Jr.'s intent and surmise that he had malintent when it came to that particular hit, that also contributes to really exacerbating a situation and making sure that you highlight the punishment because you want to use things to serve as a deterrent. We can point to an abundance of transgressions that have nothing to do with on the field acts that individuals have obviously done wrong. And what we'll do is say, okay, well, that's a good point. And because they're in the limelight and because their transgressions are so obvious, you've got people that'll pounce on them because they use them as a battle cry to highlight what you shouldn't be doing in hopes that it will serve as a deterrent. With Odell Beckham Jr., because he is who he is, because Josh Norman is who he is, because the Carolina Panthers are who they are, because Cam Newton is who he is, it just highlights and elevates the level of spotlight that has been placed on them, which is why it's even more important to make sure you send that message. I don't disagree with you with what you're saying or about Cody and all of that. It's just that you can't let Odell Beckham Jr. off the hook without a suspension in this team. Yeah,
but then so go ahead. If you're going to suspend him, like that's my thing. Is that we are only focusing on him, and I get it. It's the limelight. It's these star players, and in many it's the finesse players, right? They're not the big uglies. But you have to be consistent. You can't. You can't fine and punish players differently.
I get it. You're right. We're focused on the escalation up to that point when I think everybody today would agree he should have been ejected for the head-hunting retaliation shot, helmet to helmet, of an unsuspecting Josh Norman at the pile. That's ejectable, and he was not ejected. In all my years of following professional football, I have never seen this happen before, where they are fist fighting on nearly every play away from the ball. They're just fist fighting. They're just throwing haymakers at each other. And not enough flags were thrown, not enough policing took place where Terry McCauley, the head referee, or somebody just said, we will stop this with 15-yard penalties if that's what we have to do. So to me, if you're going to suspend him, as I said earlier in the show, you got to suspend this crew also, because it's hypocritical. It's hypocritical to say, oh, it's their fault and we got to suspend Odell. No, you need to suspend the crew. They let it just run amok. It went completely out of control and out of hand. And last quick point is, it's because this league has blessed Odell Beckham Jr. He's become almost untouchable. And I think the refs are reaching for their flags and thinking, wait a minute, it's ODB, cover a Madden. He's like the human video game come to life. He has become a promotional priority of the National Football League, right up there with any quarterback to me. And I think they're hesitant to punish him on the field because he's such a lightning rod part of the promotion of the game. So you're not going to eject him because he's Odell Beckham Jr.
I don't know if they're afraid to flag him. I did think he should have been flagged for taunting on the touchdown catch. I mean, I think it could have been worse. Here's what I would say. I agree in terms of punishing the crew. You want an example of a crew handling it the right way when things get to that fisticuffs, situation? I got one for you. Cortland Finnegan and Andre Johnson. Guess what happened? They went after it on one play. The very next play, helmets are being ripped off. Andre Johnson is putting a beat down on Cortland Finnegan, and guess what happened? Both guys got ejected. Now, guess what else happened? Guess how many suspensions were handed out?
How many?
0. $25K each guy. So, but now we need to suspend Odell Beckham Jr. What I'm saying is, like, they were 0, and I understand the climate's different. That was 5 years ago. Right. But the officials handled that situation right. It escalated. See you later.
That was punishment enough.
And guess what? And so now you've been ejected, and so now it's over. Now we've handled it, and you can't keep the nonsense going.
It's fair for you to bring that up because we were talking about it earlier, and one of the things that I negated to tell you is that, and I'll tell you as well, according to what I'm hearing, Odell Beckham Jr. has told a few people that Josh Norman threatened him before the game and, was threatening to take his knees out and stuff like that. So it was just that kind of.
But that happens.
I hear you, but he was threatening them. I just want to throw that out in fairness to Odell Beckham Jr. The flip side, to get to what you were pointing to, Tim, is that I draw a distinction between two guys faced up, swinging at one another with their helmets on, getting into a fight. I find that to be different than, you launching your helmet into Josh Norman. I think there is a difference between those two things. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, which is probably why it was easier for the officials to toss Andre and Cortland Finnegan. Yes. Helmets right after Andre had landed a couple of punches, and that's clearly against the rules, and it's easily, you can eject the guy. I would say that I think there was plenty of things going on between both guys, and I don't think there's any question that Odell Beckham was much further in the wrong than Josh Norman was. Mm-hmm. But we seem to keep coming back to, but he's launching himself into the head of another player.
Yes.
We're getting that out.
That's where I'm
And
at.
I would say to you is that, when I knew I was coming on, I said, okay, off the top of my head, I can give you the Cody Wallace play now. Mm-hmm. Let me go back and watch the other games. We find a bunch, guys.
Right.
We'll find a bunch of those plays.
But
so if you're going to do it, you're going to suspend 7 guys for this weekend.
Last quick point. Do you draw a distinction between defensive linemen and linebackers doing something like that as opposed to a wide receiver and a cornerback getting into it where a wide receiver would do that?
There shouldn't be a distinction. If you're cleaning off the pile, I don't care if you're a running back, a receiver, a tight end, an offensive lineman. If you're cleaning off the pile, you're a football player doing the same thing.
Okay, just in conclusion, really quick, you have an issue with the helmet-to-helmet thing. It should be a 1-game suspension. Yep. You say just a fine because we see things just as egregious with Cody Wallace, and Skip brings up the point that repercussions should also be addressed towards the officials as well.
We all agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We have a tweet
No punishments for you guys, though.
No, not these two. These two little angels. We got a tweet here from Prime, though, I want to get in. I wish I could bring the real, can we get that tweet up here, with @Stephen A. Smith and real Skip Bayless today on First Take about Odell Beckham and Josh Norman, #truth. So, Prime, we wish you were here, too, to join in on the conversation.
I thought you guys had an open invite for him. No?
He always has an open invite.
I was going to say.
But prime time is prime. He want to be in L.A. He want to be in Dallas. He want to be in New York. Mm-hmm. Bristol, it's got to be special.
Someone else
it's got to be special.
I didn't know that. Thank you. Skip and I see an eye to eye. Tim, thank you so much for being with us. That was great insight.
Giants beat him already.
Tomorrow on First Take, Stephen A. sat down with Will Smith for a one-on-one interview. We'll get his thoughts on his role in the new controversial film Concussion and how head injuries are impacting the future of the NFL. That's tomorrow right here on First Take. Meanwhile, behind Kirk Cousins' career-high 4 touchdown passes, the Redskins were the only team to win this weekend in the NFC East. Washington improves to 7-7 and hold a 1-game lead over the Eagles and Giants. The Cowboys have been eliminated. The Redskins can win the NFC East with a win this week versus the Eagles Saturday night. Kirk Cousins had this to say on Twitter after the win. Things I like. 1, Skins win. 2, Shake Shack after Skins win. 3, hearing people say, you like that? While eating Shake Shack after a Skins win. I like that. Skip?
I thought it was corny, but go ahead.
Yeah, I did too. I'll buy corny.
Yes. It was,
I can't
Molly.
win, people.
It was.
I can't win.
Pretty silly.
We ain't talking about you. We just talking about Kirk Cousins, what he had to say. We thought it was kind of wacky. You put yourself in that hole by saying, I like that. What was there to like? It was kind of corny.
All right, let's stay focused, Skip Bayless, because this needs to be addressed. Who's going to win the NFC East now?
Before I address that, what would be fitting and hilarious to me, the diehard Cowboy fan that I am, is that in the final regular season Sunday, you would be forced to root for my Dallas Cowboys to beat those Washington Redskins so that your Giants would win the NFC East. I'm hoping for that. you're not as much of a fan as she is. So
well, it's just, I'm not a fan
you.
of these Giants. I just think it's time for a new voice with
Unconditional
So if the Giants win the East, should
that.
they be disqualified from the playoffs?
No, they shouldn't be disqualified. But listen, they could be exciting because of Odell and Eli and all of that other stuff. But they just don't turn me on. And listen, I got what I want already. The Cowboys are officially done.
That's all
I'm
you
good.
cared about.
That's all I cared about.
That's unbelievable. That's not all that she cares about. I can tell you that.
It's Connecticut.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying? There's no
okay.
professional football team in Connecticut.
Okay, first of all, Kirk Cousins is not, thank you for that. Kirk Cousins is not going to like this because I say the Washington Redskins, who are now in command, game lead, I say they are going to lose at Philadelphia, where they're a 3.5-point underdog, and that they will lose at Jerry World, the final game, to my Dallas Cowboys and Kellen Moore. So that would drop them down to 7-9. The key game in this whole mix is your Giants at Minnesota. Okay, that's a night game. That's Sunday night, I believe, right? And I still think your Giants could win the East if they win that game because I believe they could beat the Eagles at the Meadowlands on the final regular season Sunday. But I don't know if they can win at Minnesota. I doubt it. They're a 4-point underdog there. So the odds would be that they would lose that game and win the last one. And then the odds would be that Philly would beat Washington on Saturday night and that Philly would then lose at the New York Giants. That would mean a flat-footed 7-9 tie among 3 teams in the East.
Oh, gosh.
And I can't even, I don't even, my mind is boggled, so I don't know the tiebreakers. I can't even reduce it down to what it would be. Forgive me for that. It would take too long, and it's too complex. But I'm viewing it right now as a tie. And then I'm not sure because the Giants and Philly would have split games at that point, and I don't know what point differential would favor which team. Maybe it'd favor the Eagles.
I'm just going to believe that 8-8 wins this division, and that I think the Redskins will probably pull it off. I could see. Listen, I think that Chip Kelly continues to get exposed. You got a situation where you're down 17-10. You're in position to kick a field goal, get some points on the board. You go for it, you pass up on it, you get stopped. It's typical Chip Kelly. Forget talent. It's all about me. I know what I'm doing. None of you don't, and that's what it is. And sure enough, he learns that we do know, and he doesn't. So it is what it is.
You think Kirk Cousins can win at Chip Kelly?
I think Kirk Cousins can win at Chip Kelly, and I think
well, if they do, it's over.
Well, listen,
then it's Redskins.
Then it's Redskins.
Yeah.
I think they win. That's why I'm picking them. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they just took a moment to beat up on the Cowboys. I mean, the Redskins love beating up on the Cowboys, like everybody does. So this is.
So wait a second. The Redskins have won 3 of their last 4, and who beat them? In the
Cowboys. I mean,
the Cowboys did on a Monday night at Washington.
That's why it's not.
Are you believing
That's why
that?
it's not going to happen again.
Okay.
You know, I mean, you're raving about a quarterback that threw 3 interceptions. Good luck to you.
Moore.
You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. Who's that? Who's that? I don't know their names.
He's like Joe Montana Jr.
Do we know? Is there anybody that's relevant right now? Nobody worried about them. So I mean, it is what it is. I think it would be most fitting that the Redskins would beat the Eagles this week in Philadelphia because if that happens, then it renders the last game of the regular season completely irrelevant. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Which is apropos considering the fact that the Cowboys are the opponent. So the fact is, any level of irrelevancy.
Wait, you think the Redskins are going to win?
I think the Redskins are going to win.
Do you?
No.
Okay.
I do not. I said they're going to lose the last 2 games.
I think they're going to beat Philadelphia, and they're going to render the game against the Dallas Cowboys completely and utterly meaningless. It's not going to have any factor whatsoever. Matter of fact, I wouldn't mind if they played their third stringers against the Cowboys because the Cowboys don't deserve to go up against first stringers.
So,
I mean, it seems to me that that would work.
What did I deserve to do to deserve all the gratuitous shots? That all you want to do is you're always getting on me. You don't want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. You're tired of talking about the Cowboys.
I don't mind today, though.
Let it go.
I don't mind today, though.
Wait a second.
I want you to let it go.
Not just on every show. Not just on every show. And you want to talk about it on every show.
I'm fine with it.
Every show you want to talk about them.
Not every show.
You are a closet Cowboy fan.
Today is beautiful.
You know it, and I know it.
Today is beautiful because they're officially eliminated, and it's just a beautiful thing. You know, we don't have to talk about them. We don't have to talk about them again, as far as I'm concerned. After today,
you can't quit talking about them.
Oh, trust me, I can quit talking about them after today because they're just irrelevant. I'm just enjoying talking about how irrelevant they are, and I think
to let it go. That's what you need.
I will.
Not just on every show.
12 noon today. I'm sorry, 3 o'clock. I'm definitely going to tell talk about it on my radio show. I mean, all them Cowboy fans that call my radio show. Oh, I'm not letting that go today. Oh, it's gonna be.
Call in and let him have it.
Please. What are they gonna let me have it about?
What a Saturday night robbery it was.
Really? They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it because
a game he did not watch, so he has no idea what you're talking about.
I touched on it.
He doesn't know.
I watched a little bit of it. I watched a little bit of it from the suite at the Knicks game. I told you that. I told you that. But the Redskins will beat the Philadelphia Eagles this Sunday.
That's a mouthful.
And that will be that. And hopefully it'll have a dual accomplishment. It'll secure the Redskins for the postseason, but in the same breath, it will expedite Chip Kelly's exodus from Philadelphia.
Will the Giants lose to Teddy Bridgewater at Minneapolis?
You know what? I think they'll win. You think
they'll win that game?
Well, Minnesota looked good, but then again, that was against your boy Jay Cutler and the Chicago Bears. Another irrelevant topic. The Chicago Bears with Jay Cutler.
Jay Cutler
had the nerve to walk in with an attitude towards the cameraman.
I hope it's not over Saturday because I want this gift to keep on giving.
Yeah.
I do. But we'll see.
You know, there's a chance the Cowboys are not mathematically.
Oh, just stop it. Let's change the song.
He knows. He's just doing that to mess with you because it stops it from stinging so much.
Yeah.
I know he's suffering, and listen, I'm here for you.
I'm with you, Skip. I'm in a bad relationship too. I can't be this emotionally invested in this team.
I'm appealing the Cowboy loss.
You can appeal it all.
I'm going to appeal it.
You going to appeal all the 9 losses?
No, just one. That's all I need is one.
Thank you. 9.
You can feel a buzz in the air. You know something special is about to occur.
Clemson, Oklahoma, followed by Alabama, Michigan State. The College Football Playoff, 3 Eastern, New Year's Eve, on ESPN and ESPN Radio.
The Steelers scored 24 unanswered points and rallied to beat the Broncos 34-27. It was an unbelievable comeback. Pittsburgh has now scored 30 points in 6 straight games and has scored in 21 straight quarters. The Steelers are 5-1 in their last 6 games. Stephen A., are the Steelers now the team to beat in the AFC?
I don't think anybody can say with a straight face that the Steelers are the team to beat as long as the New England Patriots have Tom Brady and they're doing what they're doing. They're 12-2. They've had a bevy of injuries. They still have Brady. They've got Gronkowski. Edelman is supposed to be coming back. Amendola is going to be back.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
I think he will be. Obviously, they've got some serious questions at their running game since both Deion Lewis and LeGarrette Blount are out for the season.
They did sign Steven Jackson.
That's right, and they did sign Steven Jackson. So you have that going on. I do believe that when you look at Brady with Gronk and those boys, they will be available. And their defense is opportunistic, and they know how to make plays when it counts most. And the road to the Super Bowl, in all likelihood, will have to go through Foxborough, which is going to make it even more difficult for a lot of opponents. I will say this, however. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have emerged as the biggest threat to the New England Patriots in the entire AFC. I know the Kansas City Chiefs have been incredibly impressive, and Andy Reid has done a phenomenal job with them, from their 1-5 start. He deserves to be commended for that. And they've got receivers catching touchdown passes now, and Alex Smith protects the football. He doesn't turn it over a lot. He deserves a lot of credit.
They force turnovers like crazy.
And they force turnovers, and for Jamal Charles to be out, and that defense with Tom Ali and Justin Houston and all of these boys, Eric Berry might be the comeback player of the year. Phenomenal story with him. D Ford showing up the other week and playing the way that he's been playing. You got to give a lot of credit where credit is due. Kansas City can't be ignored, and the Denver Broncos need to watch out for them. I feel sorry for Denver because they got the top-rated defense, at least until yesterday, and they weren't getting much help from their offense when it counted most. All right, and I think Chris Harris will make amends. Everybody ain't Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is the best in the game right now. I'm going to repeat myself. This brother's on another level. It is time we recognize how gifted Antonio Brown truly is. We always consistently said he was a top 5 receiver. Maybe he's number 1 when you consider what he does as a receiver plus what he does in special teams. So the combination of the two makes him just an elite force. But when you look at the Steelers' overall offense, ladies and gentlemen, Ben Roethlisberger is a future Hall of Famer.
I'll buy that.
He's got 2 Super Bowl championships.
Yeah.
He's got 2 already. And he is balling right now. I think he's playing better now than I've ever seen him play. He's been incredibly impressive. D'Angelo Williams is not a backup. He was just a backup to an elite running back in Le'Veon Bell, but he is no backup. And then when you look at Bryant and his speed and Wheaton and his ability and Heath Miller with Antonio Brown and an offensive line that hasn't had Pouncey for most of the year, okay, that seems to be coming together. In order to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're going to have to put up 28 to 30 points. You're not going to hold the Steelers under 30, in my opinion, when it really, really counts. These brothers are just lethal. So when I look at it from that perspective, I find myself saying, okay, who's the team that you can rely upon if they had to get in a shootout to deliver? That would be Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. You know good and well, if the Steelers are putting up points, Tom Brady and the Patriots are going to have something to say about that. They're just going to have something to say about it. Not to say that they can't be beat, because they can be beat. And the Steelers are capable of beating them. But I could see Tom Brady picking apart and shredding the Steelers secondary like they stole something. So because of it,
we did see that on opening night.
Well, remember they lost 28-21. It wasn't like, it was about 28-21, so it wasn't like it was a big blowout or anything. It was 28-21.
Brady threw for 288 and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, well, let's see, he threw for 466 against Buffalo the next game. I mean, 288 and 466 is a huge discrepancy, okay? And we know that the Steelers are suspect of giving up touchdowns to tight ends, and they happen to have the best in the game in Rob Gronkowski when he's healthy. So all of those are impediments to the Steelers' success. But the Steelers' offense seems to have found their groove. And come playoff time, they may be even more lethal than we're looking at right now. They got to get there. They got to run the table, win their last 2 games. If them and Kansas City win their last 2 games, then the Jets will be on the outside looking in unless Kansas City wins the division and reduces Denver to wild card status, which is what's going to make that Cincinnati-Denver game so important to the New York Jets.
Well,
but in the end,
somebody's visiting the Jets next Sunday. I think it's Tom Brady.
Well, that's true, and the Jets have to win.
Yes,
and the Jets have to win. They've got to win that game. So we'll see what happens. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. The Patriots are still a team to beat in the AFC, but I think the biggest threat to the Patriots are the Steelers.
Okay. The only defense as a Patriot or Tom Brady supporter that scares me is Denver's. I just think it's still the best defense in the AFC. I think it's the best defense in football right now, even beyond Seattle's defense. It is really good because it took every bit of Roethlisberger, and that throw he made to Antonio Brown, was it for the one of the late touchdowns? It was just a rifle shot into the end zone. My goodness.
Okay, it was this.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was great route running because both him and Bryant ran the same route, so the safety had to pick and choose. And Ben Roethlisberger didn't give him a chance because he just rifled the ball right in there.
I do think that Malcolm Butler has come on so strongly that Antonio Brown would not be uncoverable against Malcolm Butler. I think Malcolm Butler could hang with him, not stop him, but at least slow him down. I don't think he would run wild or catch wild on Malcolm Butler.
Maybe not to that degree.
He will fight you and scratch and claw with you and do it straight up, not like the other guy. There's no trash talk. He just plays you, and he sticks with you. And I think he could slow him down enough that Tom Brady would throw another parade on that defense. If Edelman is reasonably healthy, Amendola reasonably healthy, and Gronkowski reasonably healthy.
Yes.
If it's at Foxborough, second round or championship game, whatever it ended up being, I still think I would give the edge to the home team in that one.
Well, I don't blame you for that, but what I would warn you about is that the Steelers have proven they don't need Antonio Brown to have a big game in order to win football games and put up points. Brian Wheaton Miller, D'Angelo Williams, them brothers can get it done too. And I think that Antonio Brown just accentuates how prolific their offense is, but he isn't the sole proprietor there. I mean, they've got some brothers that can really, really play. And when we saw Antonio Brown struggle, it's usually with Landry Jones or Michael Vick throwing the football. When Big Ben Roethlisberger is throwing the football, Antonio Brown doesn't seem to have a problem having a big game.
Okay, and all of a sudden, the Patriots' pass rush is 10 times better than it was on opening night. These brothers can flat out rush the passer. When Jamie Collins is healthy now, they just fly at you from all sides.
Well, I would tell you this, too. Remember, Nobody breaks tackles better than Big Ben Roethlisberger. He may get sacked, don't get me wrong, but there are plenty of plays that he extends because of his own greatness.
Are you sure you haven't talked yourself into an early prediction?
I haven't talked myself into an early prediction, but I'm just telling you right now, the Steelers are a team to be reckoned with because that offense is big time. And by the way, Antonio Brown, 116 receptions, 1,586 yards. In terms of his receptions and compared to the amount of times he's been targeted, they've connected on 70.3% of the amount of times they have targeted this man. This is Antonio Brown that we're talking about here. And his last 3 seasons, Skip, what are we looking at here? This dude, what is it? 1,698 yards last year, 1,499 yards the year before. The last 3 years, 110, 129, and with 2 games left, now he's got 116 receptions. It is time that we recognize this brother's great.
And he lets his play do the talking, which I love.
Correct.
I hope we get to see that.
And no more flipping in the end zone.
Be fun. No
more flipping in the end zone. He stopped at a few
Stay
games.
healthy. More First Take after the break. Stay with us. The Cardinals clinched the NFC West last night with a dominating 40-17 win over the Eagles. They improved to 12-2 on the season after the team's 8th straight win. The Panthers, on the other hand, became the 4th team in NFL history to start a season 14-0 and have won 18 straight regular season games dating back to last season. Incredible. Skip, who is the best team, though, in the NFC?
Still give the edge to Carolina.
Okay.
I realize it was alarming that they coughed up a 35-7 lead to your New York Football Giants, but you know what? At home especially, Eli can do that to people. We saw a little bad Eli, but I saw a lot of great Eli yesterday. I just look back at this Arizona team, and they did lose at home to the St. Louis Rams 24-22, and they lost at Pittsburgh to Michael Vick and Landry Jones. And I'm not saying that's the end of the world, but Carolina is now 1st in points scored to their 2nd in points scored. Carolina's defense has faded to 10th in points allowed to the Arizona's 6th in points allowed. But look at turnover margin. Carolina is number 1 far and away at +19, while Arizona is only +10, which is pretty great, but it ain't +19. So I'm already projecting to an NFC Championship game. I'm not sure we'll get there, but it's looking like we just might get there. A rematch of their playoff game last year in the first round back in Carolina. I would bet on Cam Newton in that game over Carson Palmer, even though Carson didn't play last year, obviously, in that game. But I'm still going to slightly favor Carolina to win the NFC.
Allow me to be sacrilegious on this morning. I'm fascinated by what I've seen from Cam Newton. He's my league MVP. I think he's been sensational. I think that the Carolina Panthers have been incredibly impressive. But I'm not wavering from my Super Bowl pick of the Seattle Seahawks, who have now positioned themselves in the playoffs. I'm not ruling out the possibility that the Seattle Seahawks can go into Carolina for an NFC Championship game and knock them off. I'm not ruling it out. I got to see how they perform over the next couple of weeks or so. You know, and again, going through Arizona and through Carolina to get to the Super Bowl is daunting. I can see them doing one and not doing the other, but I got to see it first. I'm not ruling it out. Carolina is clearly the best team in the NFC right now. Arizona can't be ignored the way they stomped on Philly, but Philly is Philly because I don't think they beat the Philadelphia Eagles last night. I think they beat Chip Kelly because Chip Kelly knows all. I mean, he's the prophet. He's the Zen. He knows everything. So, I mean, that's what it is. I thought they beat Chip Kelly, not the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll see what they do. But I think this is a 3-horse race between Carolina, Arizona, and Seattle.
Definitely.
Okay, I'm not counting the Redskins thinking they'll win the division. I'm not counting the Green Bay Packers without Jordy Nelson, even though they got the bad man Aaron Rodgers. It's about Carolina, Seattle, and Arizona. And I think any of the 3 can knock off one another. And I think it's absolutely positively up for grabs with Carolina having an edge, but Seattle capable of beating both of them.
Sources are telling our Adam Schefter a 1-game suspension is likely for Odell Beckham after his action Sunday against the Panthers' Josh Norman. Stephen A., how should Beckham be punished?
Odell Beckham Jr. should be suspended for a game. He needs to sit down, and a message needs to be sent You can't have that kind of nonsense going on. And Tim Hasselbeck's absolutely right. Suspend anybody that did what he did. But Odell Beckham Jr. should sit out for a game. And that was about him yesterday. That wasn't about his team.
Even though he was not ejected from that
That's
game
right.
by the referee.
The referees messed up.
So the referees have to also be punished with some sort of one-game suspension.
I agree.
That's just me, because
Dock
the
the check.
NFL is reacting to the reaction.
Just dock him a check.
Yeah. Okay.
Dock him a check.
Fair
No
enough.
question.
Yes.
Great show as always, guys. Stephen A. sits down with Will Smith tomorrow. We'll see you guys 10 a.m. Have a great day. Appreciate you listening to the podcast. Catch First Take weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern in the re-air, as always, 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantore, and here's something everyone should know. If you're driving and you can't see clearly for 1 second at 60 miles per hour, you can't see clearly for 88 feet. And a lot can happen in 88 feet. That's why Bosch created the Icon with ClearMax 365. It's a rubber technology for longer lasting performance, not found on any other wiper blade. Because like you, Bosch cares about what's ahead.
Granddaddy of them all, number 5 Iowa, number 6 Stanford, the Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. Coverage begins New Year's Day at 5 Eastern on ESPN and ESPN Radio.